Welcome to the multimedia summary for the 2013 Motivation and Emotion book chapter, Intrinsic Motivation. This chapter aims to answer two focus questions. What is intrinsic motivation and how can it be fostered? The purpose of this chapter is to help the reader lead an effective and wholesome life. First, let's look at motivation on its own. To be motivated means to be moved to do something, to be inspired, energized, or activated. Motivation is a complex concept, partly because more than one form exists, and these forms are difficult to decipher without the appropriate knowledge. The different types of motivation are shown in this diagram. Amotivation, a lack in motivation altogether. 4 types of extrinsic motivation, motivation that derives from an entity separate to oneself. And intrinsic motivation, motivation that originates from within. Motivation underlies people's attitudes, goals, and actions. This means that determining the type of motivation people embody allows us to understand why they perform specific behaviours. This understanding allows them to consciously work on adapting and modifying their behaviour to in turn fulfil their desires. The key to this is establishing and maintaining the right balance between the different types of motivation. Intrinsic motivation propels an individual to make a change in behaviour for the purpose of attaining internal satisfaction or fulfilment. Intrinsic motivation can be generated by the interest, enjoyment, or challenge of a task, and can also generate interest, enjoyment, and desire for challenge. So, although the source of intrinsic motivation, as well as the meaning of its existence, may vary, it is exclusively the form of motivation that exists within the individual. Intrinsic motivation was confirmed as an independent construct in the 1970s when Robert White's experimental study of animal behaviour showed that playful, curious, exploratory behaviours are often present in the absence of external feedback. This indicated that in certain conditions, behaviour is executed simply because the organism wants to experience the positive consequences of that behaviour. This result has recently been supported by a string of similar studies on human behaviour. Intrinsic motivation is integral for human growth and development. People who are intrinsically motivated are more likely to engage in a task willingly. This means they learn more and persist with activities because they strive to improve their skills, to in turn increase their capabilities. This results in increased levels of understanding, purpose, and meaning of life. And from this comes an increase in functionality, well-being, self-esteem, originality, creativity, capacity for mastery, goal attainment, enjoyment of life, and self-actualization. Research has shown that the children of parents who provide a high-quality interpersonal contact, an engaging environment, and a caring atmosphere are more likely to embody intrinsic motivation throughout later life. While the idea of early nurturance of intrinsic motivation is an attractive concept, the conditions that ensure it will remain present throughout an entire lifetime are more specific. For this reason, a more rounded strategy in fostering intrinsic motivation is needed. This rounded strategy is provided by Deci and Ryan's version of self-determination theory. SDT involves the idea that satisfaction of 3 psychological needs, autonomy, competence, and relatedness, fosters intrinsic motivation, as they, in combination, facilitate rather than undermine intrinsic motivation. Expanding on the idea that autonomy, competence, and relatedness act as agents in fostering intrinsic motivation is the argument put forth by cognitive evaluation theory, that, so long as they are accompanied by a sense of autonomy, interpersonal events and structures such as optimal challenges, positive performance feedback, and freedom from demeaning evaluations are all predicted to facilitate intrinsic motivation. CET also shows that unless attached to competence or autonomy, reward, incentives, and punishment will undermine and in fact harm intrinsic motivation. A study conducted by the Australian company FedEx showed that in order to foster intrinsic motivation into their lives, people need to focus on what is good, important, interesting, and enjoyable to them. To uncover this, it is suggested that people firstly gain awareness of what sort of motivation drives them through life, and evaluate whether any judgments could be made to that equation. Once people are aware of their motivational sources, taking the time to establish a clear understanding of what really matters to them will pave a pathway of passion, subsequent intrinsic motivation, and ultimate fulfillment. Thank you for listening to this presentation on intrinsic motivation. To conclude and summarise what we have covered, here are the main points that allow for an effective, wholesome life.